into the Logan Ward Show here on a Tuesday, April 21st. Hope y'all having a fantastic morning this morning. We got a lot to get into, a lot of NBA or a lot of NFL draft talk. We're also going to talk a little bit about the NBA, a little bit about was really everything better back in the day. I'm not buying it. We tend to romanticize the past. I'll talk about that a little bit. And then Ryan Labner, he is the senior writer for the NBC Golf Channel. We're going to talk to him about the PGA restructure, how that's going to affect the PGA this year, what it's going to look like. A lot of questions for Ryan, so we'll have him on here in about 40 minutes. So thanks, y'all, for joining us today on a Tuesday. You can follow us on Twitter at Logan B. Ward. You can also follow the show at Logan Ward Show on Twitter. You can also follow 12 Ounce Sports on Twitter. Just search for 12 Ounce Sports and follow them on any of the social media platforms that you use. So be sure to do that as well. Lot to get into today, so let's go ahead and get right to it. The NFL draft's in a couple days, and I am fired up. I'm fired up, one, because it's the NFL draft. Two, because I'm excited to see what this draft looks like. I'm excited to see, I think that we have 4 quarterbacks that could go in the first round, really heavy with receivers and offensive tackles. I think this is a really good draft in terms of for TV. You get the quarterbacks, you get the wide receivers, you get offensive tackles, everything that I think fans like. Fans like wide receivers. Fans like quarterbacks. Fans, I think, do like offensive linemen because they know they can help their quarterback situation. So I think that this is a perfect draft because you have a lot of wide receivers, a lot of offensive tackles, and you have quarterbacks that are going to be moving around. You have pieces. We know who's going to go number 1, but we have pieces where, you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with Tua. Is he going to fall off? And if Tua's going to fall off, what happens with Justin Herbert? What happens with Jordan Love? Does he go into the first round or does he fall into the second? A lot of question marks for this draft. I'm super excited for this draft. I'm also really curious how this draft looks. We'll see what ESPN and the NFL Network does. But I'm super excited about what this is going to look like. Obviously, I'm big into sports media. And this is going to be one of the most difficult productions ESPN has ever done. ESPN's vice president, one of their vice presidents, he's been working at ESPN for 27. There's a great article on The Athletic about it. He's been working at ESPN for 27 years. He said this is by far the most difficult thing they are going to do. Technology-wise, this is the most difficult. They have so many strings to pull. So this is going to be a really, really interesting draft. And I'm so fired up for it. But this draft is also going to be interesting to see what GMs decide to do. I've heard a million different reports. There are reports that this is going to be business as usual. There's going to be a lot of trades in the first round. There's going to be people moving up for a quarterback. There's going to be people moving down because they think they can get better value. A lot of movement. There's other people that think there's not going to be any movement at all. And if there is, it's going to be not a lot because of what's going on. See, as a GM, they want job security just as much as we do. I want job security. You want job security. That's one of the biggest things that we can have in this world, especially in this economy, in this time, and this period of time in American history. Right now, we're going through a global pandemic. Job security is the biggest thing we can have. I mean, it's huge. And these GMs are just like us. They want job security. And if they decide, if there's a GM that goes out on a limb and he trades up and he whiffs, you think he's going to have a lot of job security? I don't. If he goes out and trades up for a player and is a massive whiff and no one else is moving, yeah, it doesn't look really good on you. Now, if everyone just plays it safe, you can kind of point to the circumstances. Well, look, we were going through a pandemic at this time. We didn't really get to evaluate all the players like we wanted to. We didn't get to do the medicals. We didn't do the pro days. You can kind of swing it. But if you are confident enough, to go up and get your player, a guy that you believe in, and it's a whiff, that's not great. That's going to hurt you. So it'll be interesting to see what GMs decide to do. It'll be interesting to see if GMs are going to just kind of play it safe, not move up, let the person fall. If they don't fall, oh well, let's draft another person. Let's draft a D lineman. Let's draft somebody. And if it doesn't work out, we can always point to the fact that this was in a pandemic and we didn't get to evaluate the players like we wanted to. It's pretty simple. But if you're a team that trades up, for Tua, you go to number 3. If you're the Chargers or the Dolphins and you move up 2 spots, 3 spots to try and get Tua, and Tua doesn't work out, Tua's a bust, Tua can't play, Tua gets hurt, then you're on the hot seat. You might be losing your job. Because you took the draft capital from another year, or you took multiple picks and you said, we're going to roll the dice on him. Didn't work out. Not a lot of other people are going to be moving around. I think Tua falls. I'll have my mock draft out tomorrow. That's something to look forward to. We'll have our mock draft out tomorrow. We'll finish that up and we'll do the mock draft. Super excited about that. So this is a very interesting thing. Very interesting to see if GMs are going to be willing to move around. Yesterday they had the virtual mock draft. Some people said there were some hiccups in the first pick. It delayed it 2.5 minutes on the first pick. There were some technical issues with it. And then some others said that it didn't work out really well and it wasn't great. And then there's some other people that said no, it was fantastic. It worked. It worked smoothly. It went perfect. We'll see what happens. But I would not be surprised if we don't see a lot of trades happening this year because of this. I wouldn't be surprised if Tua falls in this draft because of this. If Tua falls all the way to 18 to the Dolphins, wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if they fell all the way to 18. Now, I do think that there will be some GMs that might feel like they have some more job security. They have some better job security. Bill Belichick has job security. He's not going to go anywhere. Stephen Jones has job security. He's not going anywhere. I'm not saying that the Cowboys would trade up, but there are some GMs in this league that have earned the right to kind of maybe make a whiff, maybe take a gamble. If Brett Veach of the Kansas City Chiefs goes out and trades up a couple picks and gets a corner or a safety or whatever, and it doesn't work out, he's probably got some leeway. They just won a championship, and he's the one that got them Patrick Mahomes. He probably has a little bit of a leash there. But GMs that don't, Dave Gettleman in New York, stay at 4. I guess you could trade back, but don't try to be moving up for nobody. I don't think you could, but don't try it. Some of these GMs that are on the hot seat, don't try moving up. Because if you try to move up and it doesn't work out, if you try to go up and get one of the 4 offensive tackles and you get the one that doesn't work out, you're gone. In this climate, in this situation, I think that there will be some tentative GMs to go out there and just roll the dice. Not this year. Not this year where job security is at a premium. Job security is the one thing that most people in this country want. Especially in a time like that where unemployment rates have just skyrocketed. The economy's crashing. Job security is huge. And so it'll be interesting to see if there are teams that just say, we're going to stay where we are, we're going to get the best available player, and we're going to move on this year. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't fault them. for that. But I'm excited to see if that is the case. If this is the direction that we go in, if GMs are just kind of, if they're a little hesitant to do these things, I wouldn't be surprised. Let me switch to this. So, with the Last Chance documentary coming out, it's a fantastic documentary. Watched every second of it. Loved every second of it. Might watch the first 2 episodes again just for the hell of it. It's interesting because we always see this happen. Well, it was better in the past. Oh, it was so much better. Sports were much better. Everything is so much better. These players nowadays, it's getting so old. It's getting so old. I understand that there's a part of us that are nostalgic of the things that we've had growing up. I know that there's the part of us that kind of romanticize what we saw as kids. We saw things as kids, and it seemed so much bigger. It was a massive thing. You go to your first game, and you think somebody's 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall, because they seem that much bigger. I know that the stadiums are bigger. The fan experience is bigger when you're a child. But we tend to romanticize the past. And was the past really better? Everything else in the world has gotten better since the 80s and 90s. Everything. Technology, we now have, iPhones. I have an iPhone. This thing's a computer in my pocket. Technology has gotten so much better. We're about to have a virtual draft. Everyone's at home, and we're about to have a 32-team draft, NFL draft from the computers using technology. They're going to be broadcasting to millions of people across the country and millions of people across the globe. We're going to be broadcasting that using technology from home. You couldn't do that in the 1980s. You couldn't do that in the 1990s. Traveling, transportation's so much better. It's safer. You can't just smoke on an airplane anymore. Transportation's safer. Cars are safer. You can get into a car now. It's a lot safer than what it was 20, 30 years ago. It is. 20, 30, 40 years ago, compared to the cars now, so much safer. So technology's gotten better. Transportation's gotten better. Television has gotten better. Have you watched TV lately? I can't keep up with the amount of great TV shows that are on right now. I can't keep up. Every network's throwing out something that's incredible. Amazon's throwing out The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's incredible. Hulu has great stuff. Netflix has been putting out great content. Television's better. Movies technology's better. Everything is better now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. But for some reason, athletes aren't? I don't buy it. Athletes are bigger, faster, stronger now. Well, they didn't play with the physicality that they did in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, they don't play as physical. You're right. But they can hit a three-point shot, something that people in the 80s and 90s couldn't do. People couldn't shoot from the outside in the 80s and 90s. They just couldn't. They couldn't do it, so they didn't do it. They just stopped shooting, and so they were around the rim. Centers were massive in the 80s and 90s. Massive. Now they're pretty much obsolete. If you can't hit a jumper, if you don't have skills, if you can't dribble the ball, now you have 7-footers who can dribble, run down the court, dribble, pass, shoot. Everything that Magic Johnson did, people that are 7 foot now are doing it. Not to the extreme that Magic was. Magic is an all-time great. But to say that things were better in the past, probably not. You have in the NFL, almost we've had a lot of quarterbacks drafted in the last couple of years, right? In the last couple of years, there's not really ones that are just absolute bust. Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, none of those players are bust. All those players can play. Lamar Jackson, all of them can play. Take that 20 years ago in the 90s. Look at the amount of quarterbacks that hit and made progress. Not a ton of them. Not a lot. I mean, Brady, 6th-round pick. Wasn't a top highly coveted pick. You have high school basketball players. High school players are now trying to go straight to the NBA and dominating the sport. LeBron did it. There are high schoolers at 18 years old now that are trying to and probably could get to the NBA. Zion Williamson is like nothing we've seen before. He's 19. He's bigger, faster, stronger than anybody back in the 80s and 90s. And look, athletes, things are going to be better 20, 30 years from now. 20, 30 years from now, I hope that I'm sitting there on radio, on TV, on streaming, whatever it is, I'm going to be saying, look, athletes are better now than what they were in the 2010s, 2020s. It's because we're evolving as humans. Things are becoming easier. Technology has allowed us to look at the amount of money that LeBron James spends on his body. Russell Wilson does the same thing. They spend $1 million on their body. Health is better. I mean, there's not that many things that I would say were probably better in the 80s and 90s. Not that much. We tend to romanticize the past. We absolutely tend to romanticize the past. We have people, I remember I had this conversation with my grandmother. We were talking about how crazy the times are in this time with violence and things like that. The 60s and 70s were the golden eras of serial killers. I mean, there were people running around the streets just killing people. That was real safe. It was real safe back then. You could just let your kids go off anywhere. Yeah, that's why that's the golden age of serial killers, the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's nothing more or less safe. But we romanticize the past a little bit. And I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. But in reality, there's not much out there that you could probably say were better in the 80s and 90s, and that includes the NBA, that includes the NFL. The athletes are bigger, faster, stronger, better, more skilled players. And we hate that. We want them to just go down there and punch each other in the lane. We want people to get... And I like physicality. I like watching physical basketball. I love it. I love watching Pat Beverly and LeBron. They get after each other. But LeBron's more skilled than most of the league. LeBron's more skilled. That's the way it is. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the news and highlights around the sports world. A lot of news still going on around the sports world in the last couple of days, so we'll talk about that. Got some good headlines coming out from today, so we'll talk about that here in just a second. We'll be right back here. This is the Logan Ward Show on Between the Lines on Twitter on Sports.
For the marching exercise, you want to sit down in the center front of your chair, bring your feet shoulder width apart, and form a 90-degree angle with your knees. From here, you're going to lift one foot and raise the opposite arm, just as you march in place in your chair. Make sure you keep that core nice and tight and you breathe into it, and also maintain good posture with a straight back.
DrinkAid, ready for distribution worldwide.
That's what's needed to get to that next level. I'm Rob Pennell, and I'm going to teach you how to be an offensive machine.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now, and my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
Welcome back to the Logan Ward Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. Be sure to follow 12 Ounce Sports on all the social media platforms. You can also follow me on Twitter at Logan B. Ward. Follow the show at Logan Ward Show. A lot of news still going on in the sports world. It has been fantastic. I hope that this keeps up. And The Last Dance has absolutely helped us with this. And helped with this problem, I guess you would say, that of no live sports. It's not live. It's, 20, 30 years past its prime, but it's something that we're all watching together. And I think that that's important. I think that it averaged over 6 million people watching it, which is absolutely incredible when you really think about it. It's pretty crazy to me when people can just sit there and watch things together. The Last Dance had 6 million people watching it together, but if you look at the last season of Game of Thrones, which I watched, I loved Game of Thrones. If you watched the last season of Game of Thrones, if you watched it live on HBO, you watched it with 13 million other people. on average, I think it was about 13 million other people on average on Sundays. That is incredible. The season finale, I think, had 17 million people watched it. You're watching it with 17 million other people. Y'all are watching the exact same thing. It is incredible. And The Last Dance, it kind of felt like sports was on again. I mean, I know that during the especially during like the NFL season and the NBA season, I will sit there and I'll watch a game and I'll be flipping through Twitter, and it just feels It feels like a community. The sports community is together on Twitter when these things are happening. And that's what it felt like with The Last Dance. During the commercial breaks, I'd go on Twitter and I'd look at what other people were saying, and I had all these thoughts, and it's fantastic when you can watch something like that with so many other people. So let's get into kind of what happened in the last couple of days, or what happened around the sports world.
Let's start right out. Hey, what happened?
Missed last night's action? Don't worry, we got you covered.
He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's got
40,
something.
50,
He's got it.
40,
He's got it.
20, 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown, Titans.
What happened?
What happened? 12-ounce sports. The Logan Ward Show brought to you by MyBookie. You can join MyBookie today for a 50% sign-up bonus up to $1,000 using the promo code 12-ounce sports. There's a lot still going on in the sports world. As sports has come to a halt, the NFL's proceeding with their NFL draft, thank goodness. I mean, I don't know what I would be doing if they weren't. But they're moving ahead with their NFL draft. There's still a lot of things going on, a lot of fun stories, a lot of cool stories. So let's go ahead and get into it. I want to talk about, Draymond Green came out and was talking about The Last Dance and said that he saw a lot of parallels between the 97-98 Bulls to last year's Golden State Warriors. And he said that there was an elephant in the room, and that was Kevin Durant. Draymond basically said that Kevin Durant didn't address the contract situation that he had going on the entire season. That Steve Kerr would just say, look, we don't know how long this is going to last, so let's enjoy it, let's ride with it, and let's go. But Kevin Durant didn't ever mention it, and it said, Draymond said he wished that he would have come out and said it. This is what Draymond Green said. He said, quote, This is what Steve Kerr would say. Let's just enjoy this year for what it is, because we don't know what the next year holds. It didn't necessarily carry the same weight, because what should have happened was Kevin Durant come out and say, hey man, this is it, so let's do it, or this isn't it. He had a 1-year contract. He was 1 year up. He wasn't going to re-sign. So Draymond saying that they wished he would have just come out and said, yes, I'm re-signing. No, I'm not. I'm leaving. And there was a lot of issues in The Last Dance. There's a lot of issues that the Bulls had to overcome before that 1997-98 season. And are the parallels there? Yes, in a way, but I think that the way that the Warriors were constructed is a little different. Yes, they drafted Draymond and Steph and Clay. Yes, they did bring in Kevin Durant in the free agency period. But it never, to me, Kevin Durant doesn't feel like an alpha. To me, Kevin Durant isn't an alpha leader. LeBron's an alpha leader. Dwayne Wade seems like an alpha leader. I don't think Steph Curry is an alpha leader. He's not that. I wouldn't be an alpha leader if I was in the NBA. Michael Jordan absolutely was an alpha leader. Larry Bird was an alpha leader. There's stories about Larry Bird in college. Just going after his teammates and getting in physical fights with his teammates because, they wanted to play, or he wasn't playing around and he wanted them to get better. That's an alpha leader. MJ, Bird, LeBron. I don't think LeBron's fighting people, but he's an alpha. it doesn't really feel like anybody on that Warriors team was an alpha in terms of their leadership. Now, on the play, Kevin Durant's one of the top 10 probably most gifted basketball players of all time. But in terms of leadership, it doesn't really feel like anybody on that Golden State Warriors team was an alpha. Doesn't feel like that. And so I don't know if it's – I don't know. I think that the comparisons are similar because you had a star-driven team. You had 4 Hall of Famers. I think Draymond will get into the Hall of Fame. You have 4 Hall of Famers on one roster, kind of like the Bulls did. And you had a head coach who was on that Bulls team, but you had a head coach that was able to manage the egos of all these players pretty much, pretty well for a while. So I think that there are some parallels, but Draymond Green said that they had the elephant in the room was Kevin Durant, and they didn't know what he was going to do, and Draymond wishes he would have just come out and said, "I'm staying, I'll be here next year," or "I'm not, I'm leaving. Let's make the most of this." And it didn't happen. The Toronto Raptors won the championship, the NBA Finals, and so here we are. Here's another story yesterday. Yannick Ngakoue, he's a defensive player for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He wanted to be traded. He demanded a trade. Didn't get that. Was supposed to be a free agent this summer, but they decided to franchise tag him so he couldn't go anywhere. And he's frustrated. And he was going after the one of the executives of the Jacksonville Jaguars on Twitter, Tony Khan, who is the son of owner Shad Khan, and he's the team's senior vice president of football administration and technology. And they went at it talking about trades, and he wants to be gone, and they decided to franchise tag him, and now they're trying to look for trade partners, and they haven't been able to find trade partners. And here's my issue with this. Number one, there's a couple of things, and both people are at fault. Number one, you're the VP. Don't be getting in Twitter feuds with the player. He tweets at you, ignore it. Don't be doing that. Don't do it. You look weak. I mean, that nothing good came out of that. So that's my first thing. Number two, did this affect his trade value? Maybe. I don't know, because we've seen Odell Beckham Jr. when he was in New York. He kind of caused a ruckus, but it was because he wanted out. He went to Cleveland, haven't heard a peep. Now, Cleveland might be dealing him. I've heard from other other sportscasters and listening to the radio. I've heard that Baker and Odell just don't seem to be a fit together. It's not that they don't like each other. It's not that they wouldn't play with each other, but they just don't fit together offensively like they thought they would. And so there might be a trade for him. But so is this going to really hurt his trade value? I don't think so, because NFL players do things and can, if you can play, you're going to get a chance. So I don't think that his trade value is going to diminish that much. Maybe a little bit. Maybe one team that was interested is going to cut out, and I don't know what the market value for Ngakoue is, but it's one of those things where I don't know if it's actually going to be affecting him immediately. But that's one thing that I thought about. And franchise tags, I know I like it as an organization, but for a lot of things, I mean, for players, it must really suck if you don't want to be in that situation. And, they franchise tag you just so they could trade you. So, I don't know. It's very interesting. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Ryan Lavner. I got to go. We'll have Ryan Lavner come on the show, and he'll talk about the PGA. That's coming up next here on the Logan Ward Show here on 12 Ounce Sports Network. told you it was going to be a quick break. I told you. It's going to be a real quick break. Ryan Lavner, he's the NBC's Golf Channel senior writer. A lot of PGA things happening, a lot of PGA things that are moving around, and a lot of things that are changing. And so I thought it would be great to bring him on. A lot of things are happening with this situation. Let's bring on Ryan Lavner. He's the senior writer for NBC Golf Channel. Ryan, how are you today?
Doing great, Logan. Thanks for having me on.
I've been asking this of all my guests. What are you doing during this quarantine time? What are you doing right now?
Well, I've got a 16-month at home,
Ooh.
16-month-old at home, so that makes things a little bit more challenging, trying to keep him entertained and occupied throughout the day. That's about the toughest age I can possibly imagine to have someone at home, but we're doing okay, trying to get out as much as possible if it's not too hot here in Orlando, where we're headquartered here, and just trying to make the most of this time. It is nice, I must say. I live most of the year on the road, traveling to PGA Tour events, so to be able to spend a little bit more family time during what is normally a very busy spring has been really nice.
Yeah, I think that during this time we all kind of have to find those silver linings, and that's a perfect one. I can't imagine. I'm just home. Me and my wife are just home. She's a teacher, so she's been home for 5 weeks now. I can't imagine doing it with a child.
What does she teach?
She teaches English.
Ah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should take some of her. I should take some of her classes.
Hey, maybe. Yeah. So let's get into it. I wanted to ask, do you get the chance to golf a lot when you're on the road, or are you just kind of working the whole time?
I would say it depends. On a normal PGA Tour event, let's say I was covering this week's tournament, I would not bring my clubs just because it's pretty busy in terms of covering the event for golfchannel.com and then doing whatever TV responsibilities, whether it's our morning show or doing Golf Central at night. So there's just not a lot of built-in time. I know a lot of other writers who don't work for a TV network bring their clubs and they can sneak out for a 9 or 18. The one big trip that we do take every single year is for the Open Championship, the British Open. We always head overseas 4 or 5 days early, and we'll play 90, 108 holes, do 36 whole days on some of the best courses in the world. It's the trip I absolutely love the most and look forward to it every single year because it's just such a treat to play in England, Scotland, Ireland, wherever we happen to be that particular year. It's such a treat to be able to play that style of golf.
Yeah.
But normally, no, I don't bring my clubs, unfortunately.
Where is what's your favorite course to play, or that you have played?
Oh boy, not to brag, I played Augusta National in 2012. So when you cover the Masters tournament, they have a media lottery the Monday after the tournament is played, which is really cool. You can only be in it once every 8 years, and so it might be slightly rigged in the sense that those who are covering the Masters for the first time tend to get preferential treatment in that lottery. And so 2012, when Bubba Watson won, was the first time that I played. I got picked that year. I showed up. I think the next day my tee time was somewhere around 10 o'clock. Had a caddy. They let you go in the clubhouse. They let you go in the locker room.
Wow.
They let you take a camera and take pictures. That's a round that I'll never ever forget. Playing the golf course the day after, the same exact hole locations that you saw on Masters Sunday. That was really, really an incredible experience.
Is there one course that you haven't played that you really want to?
Oh, plenty. I mean, there's plenty in the U.S. for sure. I mean, I've never played Pine Valley. I've never played Pebble Beach even. My father-in-law had a trip booked for May, and he was all excited. I was thinking about going out there with him, and instead, like most things, that got canceled.
Right.
So those would be very high on my list. National Golf Links on Long Island is a course that I've covered a tournament at and never played. So, well, there's plenty. If you look at those Golf Digest top 100 lists that I'd love to check off on my list.
He's Ryan Lavner. He's the senior writer for NBC Golf Channel. He has an article up about questions regarding the PGA Tour's restart, so I want to get into that a little bit. So kind of the biggest question is Rory McIlroy came out and said that he thinks he has a better chance of winning now that it's kind of pushed back until November. Are you buying that, or you just think that that's something he's saying?
So I agree with him to an extent. And so the Masters in a typical schedule is the only major in which there's 8 months of build-up, there's 8 months of hype. If he's the number one player in the world, he's the one who's going to be answering those questions, especially when the calendar turns and you get those 3 or 4 months of lead-up time until the Masters, where he's being asked every single time, why is this year going to be different? What are you doing in terms of preparation? He can kind of overthink it. Mm-hmm. The way the Masters is now positioned, rescheduled for the second week of November, it is going to be such a hectic fall if we can actually get this PGA Tour and major schedule underway, that there just isn't going to be that idle time where he's going to be sitting thinking about what it would mean to slip into the green jacket or what he needs to do differently to prepare. He's just going to kind of go right into it because that's how the tournament schedule is going to fall. So in a sense, yeah, I do think this might actually help him in the sense that he doesn't have that mental weight. And I think the golf course is going to play differently in November as well. That would favor him. It's going to play slower. It's going to play longer, which certainly benefits a long ball, high ball hitter like Rory McIlroy.
What events are you most looking forward to covering now with the PGA schedule that's not a major?
So it's actually very interesting. And so I cover a lot of college golf, the NCAA championships for Golf Channel. And so that occupies a lot of my time in May and even the first week of June. And so tournaments that I have never been able to cover would include Colonial and Memorial, which is at Muirfield Village. I've never been able to cover those two tournaments because it conflicts with the NCAA championships. And so if this PGA Tour schedule can restart like they're hoping the second week of June, I'll be at Colonial, which I've never been. That's the kind of kickoff event for this new revised schedule. I will be at Muirfield Village the third week of July if they can play that golf tournament. And I've never been to the Travelers Championship as well. It always draws a great field. It's supposed to be great to media. It's supposed to be just a lovely part of the country in Connecticut. I'd love to check that one off my list as well. So I've got my eyes on Colonial, Travelers, and the Memorial Tournament. If we can get back started here in mid-June, I'm really looking forward to those three events in particular.
You mentioned you cover a lot of college golf. We've seen Cincinnati canceled their soccer program. We've seen some other teams that are now, or programs that are kind of canceling sports. Are you worried about college golf?
Yeah, I actually really am worried. I think this is only the beginning. And look, I'm not a health expert. I'm not covering the coronavirus pandemic. I'm not all that familiar, but it does seem very unlikely at this juncture that we're talking right now in mid-April, that it seems very unlikely that we're going to have college football in the fall. And if that's the case, the budget hit that's going to cause for these programs, they're going to have to cut costs elsewhere. And so while men's and women's golf might not be a huge moneymaker, if they can trim $1 million off their budget, they're going to look to do that. And so, yeah, I am worried about the short-term future for a lot of these programs. Now, I don't think, I went to the University of Georgia. I don't think Georgia's going to be necessarily affected, but I can see a lot of these lower-level D1, D2, D3 programs just cutting costs and getting rid of golf, unfortunately, if the coronavirus pandemic doesn't improve here with the outlook.
Who's the best college golf program? What's the kind of the Alabama of college golf?
Well, this year it was Pepperdine. It had a really strong program. Arizona State was going to be hosting the men's and women's NCAA championship at Grayhawk. We were all looking forward to going there. We were finally not going to have any weather issues. And then, of course, this happens. Texas always seems to have a very strong squad. And so it was kind of those three teams, at least on the men's side, that were certainly peaking and looked like it was going to be a terrific tournament. But I would say Texas annually has one of the best programs. For a while there, it was even teams like Illinois and USC. trying
Isn't
to think.
Stanford
Alabama
pretty good?
Used to be really strong. Stanford won last year's NCAA championship. They were down a little bit. They lost a couple of their good players. But yeah, I would say Pac-12 predominantly, especially on the women's side, always seems to have the best programs.
Who's the best college golfer you've ever seen?
I've ever seen?
Yeah.
Let's see. So I started covering. So I graduated in 2009. So I missed a lot of players coming through there. I would say Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, when they first hit the college golf circuit, that would have been fall 2011, and they each won 3 times in their freshman season. You could just tell, like then and there, these guys were going to make it. And Jordan Spieth turned pro a year and a half later, and was Rookie of the Year on the PGA Tour in 2013. Justin Thomas's route took him a little bit longer, but obviously you've seen what he's been able to do on the PGA Tour. And so that fall of 2011, them going head-to-head at the NCAA championship in 2012, it was Texas with Jordan Spieth versus Alabama with Justin Thomas. That was kind of the golden era for me of college golf, seeing those two future superstars battling out. You could tell that they were going to be special.
And you can't get much better than those brands either, Texas and Alabama.
No, exactly. I mean, and unfortunately, that was like before it was on TV too. We've been televising it since 2014. That would have been just an incredible show. Because if you look at those 10 players, 5-on-5, I think 8 now have made it all the way to the PGA Tour. I mean, that's as good as it's ever going to get. Yeah,
I watched last year's championship, and it's fun to watch. Those college championships, they're really fun to watch. It's kind of a different style, but it's a lot of fun.
It is, and a lot of people are still upset that they play stroke play basically the entire season. They do a stroke play qualifier at the NCAA championship, and then it just turns into this 8-team match play, free-for-all bracket-style single elimination knockout. And so a lot of people get miffed by that and say that the best team isn't necessarily winning every year, but it is undoubtedly exciting. You have tons of drama. Match play is just fun to watch anyway, and there's just so much more emotion when it comes to team match play as opposed to just, a team shoots 20 under par and wins by 3. There's just so much more drama and so much more excitement. We look forward to it every year.
He's Ryan Lavner, senior writer for NBC Golf Channel. You can go check out his latest article on golfchannel.com. Ryan, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm interested to see with college golf how many programs end up getting cut. I think that's something we're going to see, especially if college football doesn't happen, we're going to see that immediately. I mean, as soon as that announcement happens, I think we'll see in the next couple of days, you'll be seeing programs decide, hey, we're going to cut some things, and college golf, unfortunately, I believe is going to be one of those things to go. But that's going to do it for us here today. Tomorrow we'll have my mock draft, my first mock draft, and my only mock draft. That will be happening tomorrow here on the show. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Logan B. Ward. You can follow the show on Twitter, Logan Ward Show. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us there, the Logan Ward Show. You can follow me, just Logan Ward, on the YouTube channel. We'll be back tomorrow with our full head of mock draft. This has been the Logan Ward Show on 12 Ounce Sports Network.